All right, lesson 8, which variable to solve for? So when we're dealing with equations, we sometimes have equations that have one variable or they will have multiple variables. Our goal is to rearrange equations so then that way we can solve for certain variables. For our warm-up, we have this table that we need to fill. It says the table shows the relationship between the base and the area of parallelograms. So we want to look for our pattern. We have 1 inch will equal 3 square inches for the area. A base of 2 will have an area of 6. A base of 3 will have an area of 9. So what is the pattern? We are multiplying by something. What are we multiplying by? So good, we are multiplying by 3. So we take each one of our bases and we multiply by 3. And that will give us our area. So what we are doing is we are taking our base and we are multiplying by 3. And that will give us our area. So let's fill in the rest. 4.5 times 3 equals, let's see, let's take out our calculator. We'll do 4.5 times 3. That is 13.5. Then we got 11 halves, which is 5.5. We're going to multiply that by 3, is 16.5. And then now we actually need to figure out the first number. So instead of multiplying by 3, what do we need to do? We are going backwards, so we are going to divide by 3. So 36 divided by 3 is 12. 46.5 divided by 3 equals 15.5. Okay, so part 2 says we need to find out which of these equations matches this table. Well, we already came up with our equation, so that's got to be one of these. Which one is a matching equation to the one that we wrote down? So D. And then something I want you to realize is we can rearrange equations so then that way they look different. So it's not going to be C, but now we have to say what would B equal? We know what A would equal, but what would B equal? So we need to get B by itself. We're going to isolate our variable. Right now, we are multiplying by 3. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. And we're going to do that to both sides of our equation. So we get B equals A over 3. Over here. B equals A over 3. So if I wanted to find the base, I would take my area and I would divide by 3, which is exactly what we did in these last 2 boxes. Oh wow, look, these 2 equations are equivalent. What does that mean? That means they are equal. Equal. So my first equation, B times 3 equals A, is equal to B equals A divided by 3. So depending on what you want to solve for will depend on which equation will be easier to use. So if you're solving for your base, use the second equation. If you are solving for your area, use the first equation. And then remember, when you are solving for a variable, that means you are isolating that variable. You are getting it by itself. Okay, let's try some more problems. So this one says post-parade cleanup. After a parade, a group of volunteers is heading to pick up trash along a 2-mile stretch of road. The group decides to divide the length of road so that each volunteer is responsible for cleaning up equal lengths of sections. That's only fair, right? So it says find the length of the road section for each volunteer if there are following numbers of volunteers. Be prepared to show and explain your reasoning. Okay, so how much road are they cleaning up? So up at the top, it says right here, they're cleaning up 2 miles. So we have 2 miles. And then depending on how many people you have will depend on how much they have to clean up, right? So we're going to take that miles and we're going to divide it by the number of people. So if you only have one person, that's going to be really hard because that one person has to clean up that whole 2 miles. However, this first one says we have 8 volunteers. Okay, that's not too bad, right? So we're going to take those 2 miles and divide it by those 8 people. If we simplify it, this will become 1/4. So it's like, oh, okay, that's much better. So we're going to take 1/4 of those 2 miles. Well, what if we do 10 volunteers? So we're going to take those 2 miles and we're going to divide it by 10 people. And then what about if we have 25 people? Then we're going to take those 2 miles, divide it by 25 people. If we have 36 people, we're going to take those 2 miles and divide it by 36 people. This will start giving you decimals, so it might be easier to convert these miles either into feet or to yards, depending on how many people you have. Okay, so question number 2, write an equation that would make it easy to find the length of the road section in miles for each volunteer if there are n volunteers. So we did that. So we said there are 2 miles, and we are going to divide that by the number of people, which people we're going to use n for volunteers, and that will give us our total length in miles. It says, find the number of volunteers in the group if each volunteer cleans up a section of the following lengths. Be prepared to explain or show your reasoning. If you guys have to clean up 0.4 of a mile, how many people do you think there are? I will give you guys a second to figure it out. So we have this equation up at the top. 2 over n will equal our length. However, we want to solve for n, so I'm going to rearrange my equation so that n is by itself. So the way I'm going to do that is I am going to multiply by n on both sides. So we get these cancel out, and this is 2 equals my length times n. N is still not by itself, so we can divide by our length. And so to find the number of people, we would say 2 divided by our length. For this one, we have 0.4. So we would just do 2 divided by 0.4. All right, let's see what that is. 2 divided by 0.4, which is 5 people. So for A, we have 5 people. Okay, what about 2/7? Okay. N equals 2 divided by 2/7. So you can either rewrite this equation or you can try to put it in your calculator, whichever one you like better. Since it's fractions, I'm going to rewrite it. So this says 2 divided by 2/7. You're going to rewrite it as a multiplication. 2 times 7 over 2. Cross out top and bottom. So we have 7 volunteers here. So 7 people. So you could have used the original equation that we had up top and then had to solve for n each time, or you could have just solved for n once and then just used it as an easier equation. They're equivalent equations, so either one would work. Okay, one more example. We have a tank. It initially contained 124 liters of water. It is then filled with more water at a constant rate of 9 liters per minute. Ooh, this sounds like something you guys learned last year. I hope you guys remember slope-intercept form. So if you guys remember slope-intercept form, that was y equals mx plus b. Do you guys remember what m stands for? What about b? Do you guys remember what b stands for? Well, m is your slope. So this is your constant increase or decreased. And then b is your initial value. So however much you start out with. So here they said they initially started with 124. So that's going to be our b. 124. X just stays x. And then, our constant rate of 9. That is our slope. And that will give us how much water is in our tank. All right, so now it says how many liters of water are in the tank after the following amounts have passed. So now we have our equation. All I have to do is take these numbers and enter them here. Perfect. Okay, so let's try. Y equals 9 times 4 plus 124. 9 times 4 is 36. And then 0, and 6. So your tank will have 160 liters after 4 minutes. And then I'm going to have you guys figure out 80 seconds. So go ahead and take out a piece of paper and try 80 seconds. Remember, you want to convert 80 seconds into minutes. Okay, go ahead and try, type your answer, and then come back when you are ready. Okay, so let's remember we have 80 seconds, but we need minutes. So that's 60 seconds. So we got 1 minute, but then we have left over 20 out of 60. So this is the same as 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 is just 0.333333333. So for this one, we will have 1.3 repeating. So we're going to put this into our equation. Y equals 9 times 1.3 plus 124. All right, let's see. This is going to be an estimate too because it is a repeating decimal. 11.7 plus 124. So 0.7531. So this one is telling us after 80 seconds, we have 135.7 liters of water in our tank. And then this last one is just asking for an equation, which, we did that up here. This is our equation. The only thing is we would want to change this x to an m. M for minutes. Now this one says, how many minutes have passed when tank A contains the following amounts of water? Wait a minute. Now they want us to solve for the minutes. Before we were talking about how many liters of water were in the tank. So let's rewrite this. So it started out with y equals 9m plus 124. We have to get our minutes by itself now, okay? We subtract 124 from both sides. Can you subtract y and 124? Are those common terms? Are those like terms? No, they are not. So you just have to leave it as y minus 124. Those cancel. Okay, m is not by itself yet, so we're going to divide by 9. Yay! So we get y minus 124 divided by 9 equals m. But wait a minute, doesn't this look complicated? You know what? It's really not that complicated because all you're doing is subtracting and then dividing. And it does all the work for you, basically. So it makes it easier to put it into a calculator if you did want to use a calculator. So for this first one, We're going to do 151 minus 124, and then we're going to take that and we're going to divide it by 9. Okay. So 151 minus 124, and then we're going to get, which gives us 27, and we're going to divide that by 9, which gives us 3. Wow, that was pretty fast. So it tells us after 3 minutes, we will have 151 liters. Okay, now it's your turn. Go ahead and try to figure out how many minutes is going to be 191.5. All right, let's see what you got for your answer. Let's see if you're right. We'll do it here. 191.5 minus 124 divided by 9. Get out our handy dandy calculator. 191.5 minus 124. Divide that by 9. 7.5 minutes. So this is about 7.5 minutes. And then the last one, it says just if you have p, that you just leave the variable in there. So instead of y, you would have p. So it would be p minus 124 divided by 9 equals your minutes. Okay, so let's say that a classmate was absent today and they wanted to know, what does it mean to solve for a variable? What would you tell them? And then let's say, what if they asked, why should we do that? Why would we want to solve for a variable? What would you tell them? All right, good. So 2 things that you need to know for today are equivalent equations are equations that have the exact same solution and that are equal. So anytime you solve for an equation or for a variable in an equation, it's equal to the original equation. And then the other thing is if you solve for a specific variable, that can help you answer a problem. So like if you have the equation velocity equals mass times acceleration, let's say you already know the mass, let's say you want to solve for the mass and you already know the velocity and acceleration, then you can manipulate your variables and you can solve for your mass by dividing by A. So now you can just say, oh, I know mass is equal to velocity divided by acceleration. Sometimes that'll help you. So solving for variables can help you depending on the situation that you guys are doing. So what do you do next? Now you guys are going to work on your digital math notebook or your textbook, either one. So your digital math notebook is pages 28 through 30. If you are doing your physical textbook, it is the cool down and the summary for lesson 8. Thank you.